All right, so let's get started on the in-text citation, which should be a little bit simpler. So when you use another author's idea or words, you need to cite them. So we're going to go over the structure of the in-text citation, citing more than one author or more than one source, cite with an unknown author, abbreviating in-text citations, also in-text citations for interviews and personal communications. You'll probably do this a few in your classes, and also citing indirect sources. So in-text citation consists of the author, the publication date, and the quotation page and number, if it is a quote. If it's paraphrasing, then you won't include the page number. So all you would need to do is go back to the reference list and find the author and date. You only use the last name of the author. Do not use the initials of the first or middle name. So using in-text citation in a narrative, so there's two ways to do in-text citations. There's one where you're giving information and you're showing like this is the author, and then there's another way where you're using the author in your text. So it'd be an example like according to Johnson, and then you would do the date. And then you would continue on with your information. You wouldn't have to put anything at the end. So if you're using a quote, however, then you would place the page number at the end of the sentence. So it would be Johnson 2017, and then it would be page number 32 at the end of the portion. All right, so if you have two authors, you would use the ampersand sign in the parentheses. Work by three or more authors, so you'll list all the authors in a single phrase or in parentheses in the first time you cite the source. So after you list the first time, you can write the first author and you can do et al. So when you are using the author's name within the text, you'll use the and. You'll write out and instead of using the ampersand sign. So the best way to remember that is ampersand in parentheses and in words. At least that's how I remember it. Again, if you've already mentioned a citation that has more than three, you can use the et al. At the second time you cite it. And you'll do no comma between the last name and et al. So if you have 6 or more authors, you use the author's last name and followed by the et al. In a single phrase or in parentheses. So this way you won't have to worry about spelling out all the names because that would just be way too much. But again, if you have 5, you do have to write them out until you cite it again, and then you can do that et al. Okay, so if you have 2 authors, you would use the ampersand sign. A work by 3 or more authors. Weird. So if you have 2 or more works in the same parentheses, so you have 2 different authors and you're trying to mesh their ideas together, um, they would appear as if you would in a reference list. So you'll have the last name, comma, 2002, and then you have a semicolon to separate the 2 authors because they're not from the same article. And then you would do the next author, comma, 1983. So it would be in alphabetical order. So authors with the same last name. So to prevent confusion, use the initials with the last name. So if you have two last names and you want to combine the parentheses, it's only when you're wanting to combine the information that the two authors have, is when you start using the initials. So if the work does not have an author, you cite the source by its title in the single phrase, or use the first word or two in the parentheses. So titles of books and reports are italicized, titles of articles, chapters, and web pages are in quotation marks. So a similar study was done of learning to format research papers, and then you would put in quotations using APA, and then comma 2001. In the rare case the anonymous is used for the author, treat it as the author's name, so it'll be anonymous, comma 2011. In the reference list, you'll also use anonymous in the authors section. Okay, so when you have an organization like the Association of American Psychology or American Counseling, you would spell out the organization the first time, and if it is well known, you can abbreviate, which you can abbreviate anyway, as you can see in our examples. So when you first cite it, so Mothers Against Drunk Driving, you would put in parentheses or in brackets. That's another thing. So you can't have two parentheses in the same area. It makes things really complicated. So make sure you use brackets for abbreviations within parentheses, and it's MAD. So when you do your second citation, you can just do MAD 2000. That's pretty simple. So when you do personal communications, which includes interviews, letters, emails, other person-to-person communication, you cite the communicator's name, the fact that it was a personal communication, and the date of communication. You do not include this information in your reference list, mainly because it cannot be found by the reader, because it's not cited, it's not in a database, it's not on the internet most of the time. So we have two examples. We have the first one, which is E. Robbins' Personal Communication, January 4th, 2001. And then we have one where we're using the communicator in the narrative. So A.P. Smith, who claimed that many of our students had difficulties with APA style. And then you'll start your parentheses, personal communication, November 3rd, 2002. Again, the reason why you don't put the name in the parentheses is because you used it in the narrative. Okay. So this one is a little difficult to explain. I may have to show y'all a video because it gets confusing. Anyway, so I'll explain what I have on the PowerPoint and we'll see about the video, or I'll post it in the Moodle. So the signs for a reliable source is having a lot of citations and references. That's when you know when a source you can trust. So this may mean that you might find some useful quotations or information within a source that originates from another source. So in this case, you must credit both the original and the secondary source, or unless it's a founding father kind of psychology, um, information or source that probably can never be found or is super old, always try to find the original source first. That way you can cite it in your reference. And you can also find out more meaning to the second source. But anyway, so you can cite both the original and secondary source through in-text citation within the paper. But cite only the secondary source in your reference list at the end of the paper. So you would set off this as cited in, indicate the author, year, and page number of the original source. So as cited in Smith of 2013, you continue the information and then you would cite the secondary source, if that makes any sense. Here's a little example. I tried hard. So Smith, which is a secondary source, refers to the ideas of Johnson, the original source. So that's what I mean by secondary and original. Here we are. So Johnson, 2008, argued that Claridge's stampede is rooted in conservative political ideologies, as cited in Smith, 2013, page 102 to 103. As you can see, Smith is your secondary source, so that'll be at the end. And then the original source, you'll just put the date. Let's see. So if you're doing a direct quote, so you would quote from the secondary source that contains one or more in-text citations, including the in-text citation to the original source within the quotation. So an increased amount of critical analysis evidence has determined the notion that digital natives have unique aptitude for digital technologies, targetee, something, something. um, so it's within a quote, and then you would do your normal Holden et al. Is basically copying and pasting that quote, including your references from there. But you would only cite Holden here in your reference list, unless you found the original and decided to use that. But yes, so that is the end. I hope it's helped a lot. So let me know if you have any questions about APA. I know this was a lot of information all at once, and I know how confusing it can be. So again, if you're having any trouble, needs more one-on-one time, let me know. Have a great day, have a great Thursday, and I will email y'all later, and I probably won't see y'all until October. So I will see y'all then.